Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again today. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. This is the weekly Delta fishing report for the week of March 18th, 2021. And as promised, we're going to really start focusing in on the Delta and kind of wean off of the Mother Lode Lakes and Clear Lake. With that being said, I'd like to tell everyone about a new podcast that's been out for a couple months, and I think a lot of the people that watch this show may be interested in the podcast, and it's called The Bass Report. The moderator of the podcast is Joel, and he is really focusing in on the Mother Lode region, especially the Delta and Clear Lake. So he's got really great guests on. He does in-depth interviews, and you can get a lot of information from that podcast. He's got Mark Lassane on there talking about the Delta. He's got Vince Borges all the time talking about the Delta. And a lot of you guys know Vince. He's been a guide out here for years and years, and he's giving the straight skinny on what's going out here. So keep that in mind. Podcast, the Bass Report. That'll take place of me coming out here and talking about the Mother Lode. Sure, I'm not going to hit anything. I'm doing my report out here on the channel. It's Wednesday. Not a whole lot of guys running around, so I thought I'd do my report on the channel. Hopefully I don't get hit by a ship or anything. If something comes up, tell me. With that being said, I would like to give you a report on Clear Lake, because I talked to Clear Lake Bait and Tackle yesterday, and the fishing is really getting pretty good. And they're saying they're getting them on crankbaits, swim baits, and jigs, and their tip of the week would be don't fish too deep. The lion's share of the fish in Clear Lake right now are in that about 10 feet of water. So if you fish those 3 baits in 10 feet of water, you're probably going to be doing pretty well. I just wanted to throw that in, and remember, that's the report from Clear Lake Bait and Tackle. They're right there at Redbud Park, so if you go up there and you stop in and maybe pick up a couple of baits and get the most recent information, they've been really good at sending me the report. So that is Clear Lake. I'm not going to do a Mother Lode report this week, and you know, it is what it is here. It's springtime. All of the lakes are starting to pick up, and if you have a favorite lake, I would get up there and go hit it. You're going to have a good time. With that, we're going to drop right into the Delta report, and we will talk a little bit about striped bass before we get into the largemouth bass. And the striped bass, the last week the fishing has increased to maybe some of the best reports that I've had in all year. So take that with a grain of salt. The guys that have been out there fishing hard will tell you that this year has not been a banner year. It's a fair year at best, but it seems like there's more fish in the system right now than there has been at least for the last month or so. People are catching fish on everything that you can think of. I haven't talked to a lot of fly fishers. I know generally this is the time of the year that they start doing really well out here, but they're getting them on top water. A lot of guys are trolling. I got some really good reports on jerkbait fishing, and the guys that I have got reports from have all been around Frank's track. No surprise there, but they're experiencing limit type fishing, not big fish, but 2 guys are out on a boat, 3 guys out on a boat, and they're all picking up limits. So that can be a lot of fun. Striped bass are hopefully going to move into the system here. We've had a little bit of rain, and maybe they can pull the season out of the dumpster and wind up with a pretty good season. We'll see what happens in the next couple weeks with the striped bass. The guys that are catching them aren't really giving up a lot of information. My friend Eddie went out and sent me a picture of about a 13 or 14 pound fish that he caught and released. A nice job releasing that, Eddie. Didn't want to tell where he was at, but judging from the palm trees in the background, it looks like he's probably out around Rio Vista somewhere. But anyhow, congratulations to Eddie. Let's get into the largemouth bass before I hit this light 12 or wherever I'm at here. First off, let's congratulate Tony from the Wolf Pack. He went out on his birthday a few days ago and picked up a 9.2. Here he is with that 9.2 on his birthday. Congratulations, Tony, and happy birthday. He's with a group of guys from Sacramento. They call themselves the Wolf Pack. They're out here all the time. They've been sending me information, And thank you guys for sending the information. I know I'll be getting some pics from you guys coming down the road. It sounds like you're doing pretty well. With that, let's talk about water quality, water temps. We had last week, it was approaching 57, 58 degrees. We had that cold front move in, and it dropped the temperature down to about 52, 53, just within a day or two. Just cold nights, cold biting wind, and it just put a kibosh on the bite here. Now, clarity, not a big deal. We're getting 2 to 4 feet of clarity. You know, just depends on the day. If the wind's up, we may have it may cloud up a little bit, but we've got great clarity. The water temperatures right now are rising, and the fishing is getting better. But when the cold front comes in, it puts a immediate halt to the fishing. Unfortunately, we get a nice day the next day, the fishing doesn't all come back in one shot. So it stops really quick, but it takes a few days to rebound. So if you guys are coming out here, if you haven't been out, and you've only got a day to fish, make sure you choose a day that if we've had a cold front or a weather front that comes through, give it a couple days to stabilize where the barometer stabilizes, and you know, that's going to give you a better chance to get some fish out here. Now, as I said, last week the fishing was really pretty good. And they had a tournament out here, I think a NorCal tournament that took 30 pounds to win. After that tournament, that's when the cold front came and it put a kibosh. Now, last week, the main baits were worms, dark colored worms, a lot of wacky worm type fishing, chatterbaits, square bills, and guys were talking about doing some flipping and some punching, and that was the scene. This week, it's starting to look about the same. Worms are still number one, but I think crankbaits have kind of... Christmas. Worms are still number one. I think crankbaits have been a little more productive than chatterbaits, and that has not only been what I've been seeing. I've actually caught more fish on crankbaits than I have on chatterbaits this week, and everyone that has been reporting has been talking about crankbaits. So this week it's worms, crankbaits, chatterbaits, and I'm still getting a ton of guys reporting, well, not a ton, but the guys that know what they're doing, they're flipping and they're punching into cover. They may not be getting as many fish, but they're getting some big fish. There are some big fish coming out of the Delta right now. Everybody's not catching them. You know, there are days, it's not 0 to hero, but it's pretty slow to hero. So if you come out here and have a bad day, don't think you're doing the wrong thing. It's just you're probably out here on the wrong day, and the fishing is going to get better and better. So fishing is right now fair and improving, and as long as we have a stable barometer and we get some sunlight penetration, that water starts heating up, by the weekend it may be back to really good fishing. And as I talked about last week, we're going to have some really good tides coming up with the moon phases here in the next week or two. So, man, you really got to keep your eye on the Delta right now. The other thing that is absolutely important is the tides. And everyone, no matter what they're using, they are hitting up high tide, high outgoing tide. The first 3 hours of that outgoing tide has been the time to be out here. So if you're out here, make sure you plan your trip around the high outgoing tide. That is the report. Things are starting to perk up. Thank you guys that have been sending me the reports. I have been, again, I want to talk about the information that I get. I'm still getting my information from Hook, Line, and Sinker and Outdoor Sportsman in Stockton. I'm getting more and more reports from all you guys on the river, and I'm talking to people almost daily out here. So what I'm giving you guys is a report probably for the average guy, and I want to keep repeating that, because if you see what's going on in these tournaments, somebody always is busting a 30-pound limit out here, it seems like, in the last month, and that's incredible fishing. Don't expect to come out here and get a 30-pound limit, but what you can do is expect to come out here and have improving fishing from now probably through the summer. So it's the time to get out and have some fun. So with that, I'd like to kind of sign off, and I'll see you guys next week. And thank you guys for watching.
Wow.